I walked into Ironwood Bank to borrow £100 for a neighbor's groceries, my patched coat marking me as nothing. Then my sister, the manager, sneered. "We don't serve beggars here," her voice a blade that cut through the crowd's stares. Everyone laughed except me. What they didn't know was I held the key to £3.5 billion, enough to shatter their world. Stay with me, because what I did next brought her to her knees. Before starting this story, if you are listening from USA, please leave a comment with number 9. And if you are from another country, please leave the name of your lovely country. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to listen to more stories. The autumn mist clung to Ashbourne's cobblestone streets like a whispered secret, softening the edges of the city's Georgian facades. It was early October, and a damp chill seeped through my navy wool scarf, a treasure I'd found at a Christmas market years ago for £10. I pulled it tighter, the soft fibers brushing my chin, as I approached the Ironwood Bank on High Street. My boots clicked faintly against the wet pavement, each step steady despite the knot of resolve tightening in my chest. I wasn't here for myself. Mrs. Eliza Compton, my neighbor, had asked for a small favor, enough money to keep her kitchen stocked until her pension arrived. £100 would do it. That was reason enough. Inside, the bank smelled of polished oak and faint lavender, its marble floors gleaming under chandelier light. Men in tailored suits and women with polished handbags moved with purpose, their glances sliding over me like I was a smudge on the glass. My coat, patched at the elbows, and my faded corduroys marked me as an outsider. But I stood tall, clutching the scarf's edge. The queue inched forward. I kept my gaze fixed on the teller's desk, ignoring the whispers that trailed me. Then I heard a voice sharp as a blade, slicing through the hum of the lobby. "Well, look who's gracing us today," Amelia Ashwood drawled, her tone dripping with mockery. My sister, the branch manager, stood behind me, her cream cashmere coat pristine, her heels tapping like a judge's gavel. Her lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes, and the young teller beside her shifted uncomfortably. "Clara," she said, loud enough for the entire room to hear, still scraping by. "Are we?" I turned slowly, meeting her gaze. Her auburn hair was swept into a flawless chignon, her face a mask of smug triumph. She leaned closer, her voice a venomous whisper. "This isn't a charity. You know, we don't serve beggars here." The word landed like a slap, echoing in the polished silence. A man in a charcoal suit glanced up from his phone. An elderly woman by the window pursed her lips. My pulse thundered, but my face remained still. Rage simmered beneath my skin, hot and sharp. Yet I swallowed it, letting it fuel me instead of break me. Amelia's smile widened, as if she'd done me a favor by putting me in my place. The teller avoided my eyes, her hands fumbling with papers. I nodded once, not in surrender, but in promise, and stepped out of the queue. My boots made no sound as I crossed the marble floor, passing Amelia without a word. Her laughter trailed me, brittle and hollow. Outside, the mist kissed my face, cooling the fire in my cheeks. I paused by the bank's glass doors, catching my reflection head high, eyes blazing. They didn't know I held the power to unravel their world, to drain £3.5 billion from their vaults with a single command. That day would come. For now, I walked away, my scarf a quiet armor against their scorn. "Hey, where are you listening from? What's the weather like there? Drop a comment, I read everyone. Stick around, because what happened next turned their world upside down." The rain began to fall as I stepped out of Ironwood Bank, a fine drizzle that blurred the gaslights along Ashbourne's High Street. I pulled my navy scarf closer, its familiar warmth a shield against the sting of Amelia's words. Back in my attic flat, the kettle whistled softly, filling the air with chamomile and steam. The room was small, cluttered with second-hand books and a single armchair, its cushions sagging from years of quiet evenings. I sank into it, my fingers tracing the scarf's frayed edge, and let my mind drift to the shadows of my past, a past that fueled the rage still burning in my chest. Growing up in the Renfield household was like living under a microscope, every flaw magnified. Amelia, 4 years my senior, was the golden child, her charm a polished weapon. I was the afterthought, the quiet one who dared to dream beyond our family's expectations. At 16, I'd sketched plans for a tech startup in a tattered notebook, only for Amelia to snatch it at a Christmas dinner and read it aloud to our cousins. Clara thinks she's the next big thing. She mocked, her laughter slicing through me. Stick to washing dishes. Love. The room erupted in chuckles, and I stood frozen, my cheeks aflame with shame. My father, stern and distant, never looked up from his plate. That night, I vowed to prove them wrong, my anger a silent ember that refused to die. The final blow came 5 years ago, when Father passed, his will, read in the oak-paneled study of our Shropshire estate, left everything land, investments, legacy to Amelia and Isabel, my other sister. My name was omitted, as if I'd never existed, for her own good. The solicitor intoned, as if poverty were a kindness. Isabel, always scheming, patted my arm with false pity. You'll manage. Clara, you always do. I walked out into the frostbitten night, my breath clouding with fury, and swore I'd build something they could never touch. Their betrayal wasn't just a wound, it was a fire that forged me. I found my escape in a chance meeting with Thomas Caldwell, a reclusive financier who saw potential in my knack for systems. Together, we crafted Silverthorne Holdings, a fund registered across 6 countries, its assets shielded by layers of legal intricacy. I worked under the alias Ivy Sparrow, a name born from a childhood memory of a bird I'd nursed back to health. My role was the architect designing encryption so tight it could lock out governments. Thomas raised the initial capital, but by year 3, I held the majority stake, a secret worth £3.5 billion. No one, not even my accountant, could trace it to me. Ironwood Bank, desperate for prestige, had courted Silverthorne as a silent partner last spring. I reviewed their contract myself, watching Amelia's signature scrawl across the page, oblivious that she was binding herself to me. Each slight from my family, Amelia's sneers, Isabel's condescension had pushed me deeper into my work. I remembered a gala 2 years back, where Isabel whispered to a guest, "Clara's just a dreamer. No head for business." My hands trembled as I clutched my glass, but I smiled through the pain, channeling it into code that night. The humiliation, the erasure, it all hardened my resolve. I wasn't just building wealth, I was crafting a reckoning. Amelia thought she stood above me, but she'd been serving my empire all along, her every decision tethered to my unseen hand. Now, as the rain tapped against my window, I opened my laptop, its edges worn from countless nights. The screen flickered, awaiting my passphrase. Sparrow rises unbroken. My heart didn't race. It burned with purpose. Amelia's voice echoed in my mind. "We don't serve beggars," and I clenched my fists. The anger raw and unyielding. They'd tried to break me, but I'd built a fortress. Soon, they'd see what I'd become. The morning mist had burned away, leaving Ashbourne's High Street sharp under a pale October sun. I stood before the Ironwood Bank, my navy scarf tucked neatly beneath the collar of a tailored charcoal coat I'd bought for this moment. My reflection in the glass doors showed a woman transformed not by wealth, but by resolve. My heart thundered, not with fear, but with the righteous fury that had simmered for years. Today, Amelia Ashwood would learn the cost of her scorn. I pushed through the doors, the air inside heavy with lavender and ambition, and strode toward the reception desk, clutching a sleek leather folio. The lobby hummed with the quiet efficiency of wealth. A young receptionist, her badge reading Emily, glanced up with a practiced smile. "Good morning, ma'am. How may I assist you?" Her eyes flickered over my coat, registering its quality. "I have an appointment," I said, my voice steady. under Silverthorne Holdings. I slid the folio across the counter. Emily scanned a QR code inside, her brow furrowing as her screen flashed red. "One moment, please," she stammered, reaching for the phone. Before she could dial, a familiar voice cut through the air like a shard of ice. "Clara, what are you playing at now?" Amelia stormed across the marble floor, her cream suit pristine, her heels a staccato of authority, her eyes narrowed, glinting with the same contempt I'd endured for decades. "I told you this isn't a soup kitchen. Whatever stunt this is, end it." Her words were a whip, meant to sting, but I met her gaze, my anger a molten core that steadied me. I said nothing, handing the folio to Emily, who hesitated before opening it. Amelia snatched it from her hands, her smirk sharp. "Let's see what my little sister thinks she's got." She flipped through the documents, her confidence fraying with each page. Her fingers froze, her breath catching as she read the name, Silverthorne Holdings, primary withdrawal request, £3.5 billion. Her eyes darted to mine, wide with disbelief. This isn't real," she whispered, her voice cracking. The lobby fell silent, the air thick with anticipation. A man in a pinstripe suit paused mid-step. A teller's pin clattered to the desk. "It's real," I said, my voice low, each word a blade. "You've been working for me, Amelia. Every signature, every deal you've brokered for Silverthorne, it's been under my command." My eyes burned with the rage I'd buried for too long, the humiliation of her laughter, her dismissal, now fuel for this moment. Emily's phone buzzed, and a tall man with silver hair emerged from a side office, Mr. Harrow, the regional director. He took the folio, his expression unreadable as he typed into a tablet. "VIP authorization confirmed," he said. His voice clipped. "Lockdown initiated. Lobby closed." The glass doors clicked shut, sealing the bank in a tense hush. Amelia staggered back, her face ashen. Then, as if her pride shattered, she dropped to her knees, her hands clutching the folio. "Clara, please," she choked, her voice raw. "Don't do this. You'll ruin me, my career, my family, please. I beg you." Tears streaked her perfect makeup, but I felt no pity, only the cold satisfaction of justice. "You ruined yourself," I said, my voice unwavering, my anger a quiet storm. "You mocked me, spat on my name, but you've been bowing to me all these years." A gasp rippled through the onlookers. Mr. Harrow cleared his throat. "Miss Renfield, we'll need to discuss this privately in the executive suite." I nodded, stepping past Amelia's crumpled form without a glance. As the elevator doors closed, her sobs echoed behind me, a sound I'd never forget but not one I'd forgive. The bank was hers no longer. It was mine. The rain returned to Ashbourne that evening, a soft patter against the tall windows of my attic flat. I stood by the sink, the chamomile tea in my mug long gone cold, its bitter aftertaste mirroring the turmoil in my chest. The memory of Amelia's crumpled form on the Ironwood Bank's marble floor lingered, but it brought no comfort, only a hollow ache, laced with fury at the years of betrayal. My phone buzzed on the counter, shattering the quiet. The screen glowed with Isabel Fairchild's name, my other sister. Her call as predictable as it was unwelcome. I let it ring out, my jaw tight, the rage she'd stoked for decades burning anew. Isabel left a voicemail, her voice syrupy with false warmth. "Clara, darling, we're all a bit shocked. Let's have lunch tomorrow at the Ivy Crown, just to talk things over. No pressure." I deleted it without a reply, my fingers trembling with indignation. Henry Whitlock, her husband, called next, his tone oily and rehearsed. "Clara, it's been ages. We should catch up, maybe brunch this weekend. Isabel's worried about you." "Worried?" I scoffed, tossing the phone aside. They weren't worried, they were scrambling, sniffing out the wealth they'd dismissed me for lacking. Their audacity fanned the flames of my anger, a reminder of every slight they'd delivered with a smile. Later that night, My laptop pinged with an alert from Thomas Caldwell. Amelia had tried to access Silverthorne Holdings' executive panel, her login credentials blocked by my encryption. I pictured her in her pristine office, fingers frantic on the keyboard, her arrogance unraveling as my system shut her out. A bitter laugh escaped me, but it tasted of ash. She'd mocked me as a failure. Yet her every move had been tethered to my unseen power. The thought should have satisfied me, but it only deepened the wound. Why had they never seen me? The next morning, as I dusted my bookshelf, a letter slipped from beneath the door, its cream envelope stark against the worn oak. My mother's handwriting. Margaret Thornhill's elegant script stared back, each letter precise yet heavy with something unspoken. I hesitated, my heart pounding with a mix of dread and fury. What could she say now? After years of silence, I tore it open, the paper crisp under my fingers, and sat at my small table, the rain outside a mournful chorus. "Clara," it began, "there are truths I've buried too long." My breath caught as she wrote of a summer when I was 10, when I'd built a birdhouse for our Shropshire garden. Isabel had smashed it with a cricket bat, claiming it was an accident. I'd wept, but Margaret had watched, torn between her daughters, and said nothing. "I thought I was protecting you both," she confessed, "but I failed you most." She revealed how Isabel had manipulated Father's will, forging amendments to cut me out, while Margaret, grieving and overwhelmed, had turned a blind eye. "I let their ambition blind me to your worth," she wrote, "and I've carried that shame ever since." I dropped the letter, my hands shaking, rage surging like a tide. How dare she speak of shame now, after letting me drown in their scorn? The pain of her silence cut deeper than Amelia's taunts or Isabel's schemes. A betrayal that seared my soul. I wanted to scream, to burn the letter and its hollow remorse. But a quieter anger held me fast, a resolve to make them face the truth. Margaret's words weren't an absolution. They were a mirror, reflecting the family that had tried to erase me. I folded the letter, my fingers steady now, and set it beside my scarf. The fight wasn't over. They'd soon learn what their silence had cost. The Ivy Crown's chandelier cast a warm glow over Ashbourne's elite, their laughter mingling with the clink of crystal glasses. I stood at the threshold of the private dining room, my navy scarf draped over a crisp navy blouse, tailored trousers hugging my frame. The air smelled of rosemary and wealth, but to me, it reeked of hypocrisy. My pulse thrummed with a fury honed by years of betrayal. Yet my face was a mask of calm resolve. Tonight, I'd face my family not as their discarded sister, but as their reckoning. I smoothed the leather folio in my hands, its weight a promise, and stepped inside. The long mahogany table was set for 12, a centerpiece of white lilies mocking the occasion's pretense. Isabel Fairchild spotted me first, her crimson dress a garish bid for attention. "Clara, you came," she cooed, her smile brittle as she rose. Henry Whitlock, her husband, followed, his tie askew, his grin too wide. "Good to see you. Clara, been too long," he said, as if we were old friends. Margaret Thornhill, my mother, sat at the table's end, her pearl necklace glinting, her eyes avoiding mine. The room buzzed with cousins and family friends, their chatter faltering as I took the head seat without a word. Isabel resumed her role as hostess, her voice syrupy. "We're so glad you're here. Clara, we've all missed you." My jaw tightened, rage flaring at her gall. Missed me. They'd erased me, mocked me, stolen what was mine. I set the folio on the table, its black cover stark against the white cloth. "I'm not here for pleasantries," I said, my voice low, each word carved with precision. "I'm here to settle accounts." The room stilled, forks hovering, eyes darting. Isabel laughed, a nervous trill, always so dramatic. "Clara, can't we just enjoy dinner?" I opened the folio, my movements deliberate, my anger a quiet inferno. This is a trust signed by our father, I began, sliding out a yellowed document, equal shares for his daughters. Gasps rippled as I revealed a second page of forged amendment, dated 2 weeks before his stroke, cutting me out. Isabel's handiwork, I said, my eyes locking on hers. Her face paled, her glass trembling. That's nonsense, she stammered. I pressed on, pulling out property deeds, the Shropshire vineyard, siphoned into your offshore account, and the STEM endowment for young women you funneled it into your real estate ventures. The room grew colder, the air thick with shock. I projected a PDF onto a screen behind me, Margaret's signature on the endowment's misuse glowing starkly. This was signed while you were in surgery. Mother, I said, my voice steady, though fury clawed at my heart. Isabel forged it. Margaret's hands clutched her napkin, her silence deafening. A cousin coughed, shifting uncomfortably. Henry leaned forward, his voice strained. Clara, let's not air dirty laundry here. You erased me, I said, my gaze sweeping the table, my anger a blade honed sharp. You stole my legacy, mocked my dreams, and called it charity. But I've rewritten your story. I revealed a final document, a letter from Margaret, dated 6 weeks ago, retracting her consent to Isabel's transfers. Isabel's chair scraped back, her face flushed. You've always been jealous, she spat, her voice cracking, digging up lies to tear us down. A family friend stood, his face grim. Isabel, enough, he said, shaking his head. Others followed, excusing themselves, their footsteps heavy with shame. Margaret remained silent, her eyes fixed on her plate, as if lost in a truth too heavy to bear. I closed the folio, my hands steady. This house has 2 doors, I said, my voice ringing clear. Tonight, I walk through the one you didn't build. I turned, leaving the wreckage of their lies behind, my anger a fire that finally burned free. The dawn broke over Ashbourne, its soft light filtering through the mist that clung to Willowmere Park. I walked along its gravel paths, my navy scarf loose around my neck, the air crisp with the scent of damp earth and fallen leaves. The fury that had driven me through the Ivy Crown's dining room had settled into a quieter resolve, a fire banked but not extinguished. Isabel and Amelia's downfall was no longer a dream, it was unfolding, swift and unyielding. Yet the weight of their betrayal still lingered, a shadow I was learning to step beyond. Within days of our confrontation, the consequences rippled outward. Isabel's resignation was announced in a terse press release from her real estate firm, citing personal reasons. I read it over coffee in my attic flat, the words blurring as I pictured her polished facade crumbling. Her license faced a formal review, her empire of deceit teetering under scrutiny. Amelia's fate was swifter. Ironwood Bank suspended her, her managerial title stripped pending an ethics investigation. I imagined her in her cream suit, staring at a locked office door, her arrogance reduced to ash. The justice was cold, precise, and mine, yet it stirred no joy, only a grim satisfaction that their lies had finally caught up. The truth found its own voice, unprompted by me. A young reporter, Daniel Kerr, published a piece on a financial ethics blog, detailing the Shropshire Trust's mismanagement. He'd been tipped off, not by me, but by an Ironwood clerk weary of silence. The story spread, not to tabloids, but to legal forums and compliance groups, striking a chord with those who valued integrity over wealth. Then came Walter Huxley, my grandfather Edmund's closest friend, a man whose tweed jackets always smelled of peppermint. In an interview with a regional paper, he spoke of Edmund's vision, how he'd crafted the trust for me, knowing my family's scorn. Clara was his pride, Walter said, his voice steady. He knew she'd rise when the time came. The words reached me through a shared link, and I pressed my scarf to my lips, my eyes stinging with a warmth I hadn't felt in years. My phone rang 4 times that week, Margaret's number flashing each time. I let it go to voicemail, her hesitant messages piling up pleas to talk, to mend what was broken. I deleted them, my heart hardening against her belated remorse. She'd chosen silence when I needed her most. Now, she could live with mine. The anger that once consumed me was fading, replaced by a clarity that felt like freedom. I didn't need her words, her guilt, or her tears. I had something stronger myself. In the heart of Ashbourne, Hearthlight Trust opened its doors, a modest building of glass and stone where young women would learn to code, to dream, to build. I'd poured my share of the Shropshire Trust into it, every pound a defiance of my family's greed. On its first day, I stood in the lobby, my coat draped over my arm, watching a girl no older than 18 type her first line of code. Her focus, her quiet determination, mirrored the girl I'd been before they tried to break me. I smiled, not for them, but for her, for me, for the legacy I was forging. The world saw me now, not as the beggar Amelia mocked or the dreamer Isabel dismissed, but as Clara Renfield, the woman who'd turned their lies into light. The recognition wasn't loud, no parades, no headlines, but it was real, etched in the lives Hearthlight would touch. I left the building as the sun climbed higher, my steps light, my scarf catching the breeze. The anger that had defined me was no longer my guide. It had served its purpose, clearing the way for something new. I was ready to walk forward, unburdened, into a future I'd built alone. Sat beneath an ancient oak in Willowmere Park, Ashbourne's morning mist weaving through its gnarled branches. My navy scarf rested in my lap, its fibers soft against my fingers. A quiet companion through years of struggle. In my hands, I held a worn brown ledger, its pages brittle with time. My grandfather, Edmund Renfield, had given it to me when I was 10. A gift to track my dreams. Its faded ink held my childish scrawls, plans for a future no one believed I'd claim. Now, it was a testament to my triumph, a symbol of the legacy I'd reclaimed from those who'd sought to bury me. The anger that once defined me had ebbed, leaving a serene strength in its wake. I'd withdrawn more than wealth from my family's grasp, my dignity, my loyalty, my love. I'd invested them in Hearthlight Trust, a beacon for women like me, forging paths where none were offered. As I traced the ledger's edges, I saw Edmund's weathered smile, his voice echoing, "Build, Clara. They'll see you one day." That day had come, not with vengeance, but with purpose. My heart swelled, not with rage, but with peace, a quiet victory earned through years of silent resolve. I stood, slipping the ledger into my bag, and walked toward Hearthlight's glass doors. The mist parted, sunlight glinting off the building's facade, a promise of new beginnings. I was no longer the girl they'd mocked, but a woman who'd turned their scorn into light. My steps were firm, my future clear. This story of Clara Renfield resonates deeply with the struggles many face in a society quick to judge and slow to recognize worth. It teaches us that our value is not defined by others' scorn, but by the strength we forge in silence. Like Clara, we can transform betrayal into purpose, channeling pain into a legacy that uplifts others. Her journey reminds us to stand tall, invest in our dreams, and support those overlooked, creating ripples of change in our communities. This narrative is for entertainment and education only, not intended to target any individual or organization. If Clara's triumph inspired you, drop a comment below, share your thoughts. Like, share, and subscribe to keep these stories alive. Let's empower each other. This story is a work of fiction created for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to attack or defame any individual, family, or organization. Any resemblance to real persons or events is purely coincidental. If this story moved you or sparked a thought, please let us know by commenting below. Your likes, shares, and subscriptions help us create more stories that inspire and entertain. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching and being part of our community.